Hello and welcome back to the Unlocked Potential podcast. On this week's episode, we have Mark Donnelly, who is the owner of S01E23 Clothing, How's Your Head? And we spoke about how he built mental health awareness around his brand and his business. I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for coming on, Mark. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, you have a clothing brand called, how do you pronounce it? Like as in like you're spelling it, H-U-H clothing or clothing?
Yeah, so
which one is it now?
So firstly, thank you for bringing me on. But HUH essentially is my Irish mental health awareness clothing brand. Yeah. And I often say in all my talks and anyone I meet, like, I don't care how you say it, as long as you're saying it.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea behind the brand is to spark casual conversations around the topic of mental health. So if it's HUH, how's your head?
Yeah, I've seen you in a few TikToks going.
Yeah. So I'm just like, say whatever way you want. As long as you're saying it, it has that effect. So it's all about, for the listeners, it's how's your head? And we're an Irish mental health awareness clothing brand. And we raise money and awareness for organisations in need. And the whole idea behind that design is to spark conversations around the topic of mental health.
Yeah, and I seen in one of your videos you have a board in your office of how much money is raised.
Yeah.
how much, if you don't mind sharing? Like, I'd say that's...
Yeah, so we donate 10% of every single sale. So over the years, so we're a few years in now, 2 or 3 years in, and I think it's around 40 grand now.
That's amazing. That's so good.
Thanks very much. And it's from every t-shirt, every hoodie. Ironically, like, I'm not wearing it today, but...
You're in the videos now. You're always wearing it. Yeah.
I know. I wear it most days, and then some days you just need a break.
Yeah.
Because I have the car outside that's branded in HUH too, so I just can't escape. But every sale, every t-shirt, every hoodie, every hat, we donate to charity, and then we do lots of corporate work too, and then lots of fundraisers. So about 40 grand and counting, and that gets spread across like all charities. So for example, it's not just going.
You don't just pick just like saying one.
No. So it's not just like Pieta House. So we'd go to ones. I'm from Ashburn, so we have Ashburn Suicide Awareness and Prevention. And then, for example, Kerry Mental Health Foundation, Pieta House, Jigsaw, people in small towns in Leitrim, like just for example, to share the kind of love far and wide. Because you know at Pieta House, great organisation, but when they darkness into light, they nearly get enough funding in one day for the whole year. Whereas I got a personal phone call from the founder of one of the charities in Kerry, I think it was, or Cork, and I donated €1,000, and he picked up the phone and rang me. He's like, "Is this Mark?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, your donation just came through. You just gave us €1,000. Did you mean to do that? Or was an extra zero thrown in there by mistake? And I was like, no, I did. And he's like, "Next time in Dublin, I'm taking you out for lunch. Thank you so much." And he just couldn't believe it. And that's kind of like why I do it. Not for that praise, but to know, right, there's people in Cork or there's people down the country or wherever, and they're benefiting off the sales because of my customers, if that makes sense. And then this conversation's being started off the back of all my clothing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
So how did you start? What made you start the business?
Where do I start? So, like, I do a lot of school talk, so I'll probably take the same format as I do there, or this could turn into like a 6-hour conversation. But as far back as I can remember, like, I've struggled with my mental health. I'm very passionate about my mental health and mental health in general. So as a whole, I think there's a lot of issues with mental health related stigma and kind of mental health related issues around illnesses and all that sort of stuff in Ireland. So I saw, as like, I'm 28 now. So through the years, and before we go back in time even further, play a lot of GAA. I've worked in the nightlife industry. I've worked abroad, and I just saw this reoccurring theme of like young people and men in particular.
They're really good at hiding it as well.
Absolutely. And no one's talking about the same issues that we all have. And I was kind of like, well, I feel this certain way. Like, well, I'm going to start talking about this. So that's kind of like really the quick explanation. But if we go back in time, I remember as a child, like, being very anxious, having no self-confidence, and a lot of just kind of insecurities, and then which manifested. So that anxiety, I can pinpoint where it started, right? And it's a relatively interesting story. So back in the day, and some of the viewers and the listeners might relate to this too, my dad worked in the finance sector. So he worked in the bank. He's retired now. And I remember growing up as a young child during the early 2000s, like the Celtic Tiger, and like even into the recession, there was loads of tiger kidnappings going on. And for anyone listening who doesn't know what a tiger kidnapping is, it's like a group of criminals will come to the home of someone working in the finance industry. So be it someone, a post office worker, a cash van driver, a bank worker, whatever it is, kidnap the family and hold them at ransom to
What?
get money off.
I've heard of that term before, but
Yeah.
I thought it was more to do with like drugs or something.
No, so it's
That's what I thought it was.
it's to do with like kidnapping the family of these people in the like financial sector and then getting money off them. So when I was growing up, this was happening all over the place. So I'm from Ashburn, so predominantly all around like North Dublin and Meath, so it's close to home. Like, disclaimer, it did not happen to me, okay? But I was only 10, 11, 12, and that was my first memory of having like an anxious thought, which was an intrusive thought, okay? And I didn't really think much of it, but growing up then, we would have had stories in my family where my dad's dad did the same thing. He was in the bank. And one day he was bringing my auntie to school back in the day, during the Troubles actually, up around the border. And two of them got kidnapped. So a van pulled up in front of them, jumped out of the back with guns, kidnapped my auntie and her friend, and took them for 2 or 3 days. So I grew up with that story. They got back fine 2 or 3 days later. They actually said they treated them quite well. And then they were left at a random petrol station somewhere around Dundalk. But I grew up with that story, okay? And then all this started to happen again. And as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, I obsessed over the thoughts of this happening. And like I said, it never happened, but I became really,
That's
really...
like a OCD, is it?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what I was about to say. I became really anxious and insecure. I had these intrusive thoughts, which is a part of OCD. Didn't know what that was at the time, but it manifested into that.
And how did you find out that that's what it was? Did you go to counselling to kind of figure that out?
Yeah, well, so the sad reality of it is I didn't find out what it was until I was 25.
Right,
And
okay.
that's why I'm really passionate about it, because all these years, so let's say from 12 onwards, I would have dealt with. So for one example was, I became really hyper vigilant in my home about security, right? And I was only 11. So I'd be running around the gaff, like locking doors, locking windows, checking the gates was locked. And I would do it and I'd come back in and then I'd do it again. And if you saw me, if you lived opposite my house, right, you'd see me running out to the gate 10 times, like, what's that man taking? Like, why is he doing this? Like you could watch me lock the gate or the door and then I'd go do it again and again and again. Oh, but what if you didn't? But what if you didn't?
I do that with my car. Like, I'd be walking away and I'm like, I just locked it 3 times. And I'm like, oh, just in case. Like, I'd say people are looking at me going, is she for real?
No, but you know what? That's a trait of it too. And like when you've so much going through your mind as well, that happens as well. So that kind of manifested into so many different things. And this is a bit of a story, like a kind of long-winded, but it's interesting for the listeners and it might be relatable. So that kind of dwindled, those intrusive thoughts of being like broken into and kidnapped dwindled as I got older, right? Kind of because like I was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. Like, that's not going to happen. And as I grew older, the goalposts moved, right? So the worries and insecurities just shifted. So then it became about kind of my self-image and how I looked and my confidence in myself. And I just started to use sports. I played loads of GAA, loads of hurling, loads of golf as a distraction method to all my issues. So I never wanted to be at home. And then that was grand. I was really into that, got really into business at a young age. So I was really entrepreneurial and I just start buying and selling stuff in my house. Like, there was a point my mom was like, Mark, you just can't sell this anymore, because I'd like pick up my brother's Nintendo and be like, there's a bit of dust on that now, that's going on done deal in the morning. I'll make 20 quid. But I think all of this stuff, and don't get me wrong, there's so much benefit in the sport I played and the work I've done, but a lot of it was like a distraction technique of what was going on inside.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it helped your mental health in a way, but like,
100%, because I didn't know what was happening inside.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, like the problems and worries just kept moving to something else. So let's say it went from the idea of being kidnapped as a young age. Like, I should have been out enjoying time with my friends and stuff. I had lots of great friends too, and I did, but I was like totally consumed of the thoughts of this from the minute I woke up, from the minute I went to bed. Then it moved on to how I looked and how confident I am. And I put on such a big like facade and such a brave face. I was like this really extroverted. Everyone knew me. I was getting involved in everything in my town, in my school. And I would have been like the class clown. But again, it was all just like a smoke screen to throw people off the scent.
I feel like that is the kind of case with fellas. It's always the person that's very loud and around that's probably the one suffering with mental health.
100%. And like, as that moved on, okay, so then it shifted from that to I went through a phase of eating really unhealthily, right? And that was just like comfort eating, because I couldn't really take it anymore. And then I piled on loads of weight, okay? So we've gone through the phases here, and now I've piled on all the weight. And after all this, I haven't dealt with any of my problems. And now I'm severely overweight and it's not helping my confidence, or now I can't really play the sports to the level I was playing it. So my confidence is knocked again. And I've noticed throughout all this, like I'd be quite resilient, but also really stubborn. So once I set my mind to something, I'm quite good at like doing it. And one day it just clicked, right? I was like, I'm losing all this weight, right? And I just decided to run for 365 days in a row, which just got in my head. Like if you told me right now, Mark, you wouldn't go out there and run 40 kilometers, I'd run it. And it might take me 10 hours, it might take me 4 hours, but I'd do it just out of spite nearly.
What's the longest run that you've done?
Probably like 30 kilometers.
30
yeah,
kilometers?
But that was actually during this period that I'm about to talk about. So one day I decided that I'll just go running, and I was about 16 or 17 at the time. And I was like 19 stone, right? So first day I ran, thought my heart was going to explode out of my chest. I honestly thought I needed an ambulance after a kilometre down the road. And I was really self-conscious too. But what I did was I ran every single day for a year. Not one day missed, okay? And I lost 5 stone in a year. And it was my kind of message to myself, like, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. And also, like, you're resilient. You've been through all of this till now. You've not known what's happened or how to even deal with this, but this was a way of kind of like setting my mind to something and showing and proving to myself, like, you're better than you think you are. Yeah. And I remember telling that story years on, and I said it to a friend of mine who's a bit older. We were working in a pub together, and he just loved chatting to me because I'd chat to anyone, I'd chat to the wall, like, you know what I mean? And he's like, it came up in conversation. I told him I lost all this weight. I had to re-kit out my whole wardrobe. Nothing fit me. And he's like, what did you do on day 366? And I said, well, I did what I did for the 365 days. Yeah. I ran. And like he muttered, right? And he's like, wow. He goes, 365 plus 1, baby. Right? And I swear to God, if you look at my arm here, I'll be on camera too. I have HUH, and underneath it says 365 plus 1. And I only got this 3 weeks ago. So I have tattoos up my arm as well. But this one was one I thought about for years.
It means something to you.
So much.
Yeah.
And now every time I look at it, the HUH brand could be gone in a year, 2 years, 20 years, right? But it still means the same, the mental health message. But the 365 plus 1 is a daily reminder of like how far I've come, how resilient I've been, and how much I've achieved. And the reason I did it is because we don't give ourselves enough praise. Like I never say, geez, well done last week, Mark. You did a good job. You got all the sales in, or you got this corporate contract. I never do. It's
You're
just in our
always
nature.
Looking for more, and you want to achieve more. You're never
100%.
Never sit there and kind of like praise yourself for what you've done. I'm the same.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. And then someone else will come up to you and be like, "Oh, you're doing unreal," and you're like, "Am I?"
But it's like it's the Irish nature in us, I think, and it's kind of ties into not wanting to talk about our mental health. But now every time I look down, I see HUH 365 plus 1. It's like a reminder that like one more day. You can do it for one more day. You've survived 100% of your worst days till now. Because we've all had horrific days, but we're still here. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, there's people who aren't because they can't see any other option out other than when there's mental health related suicides and mental health related deaths, all that sort of stuff. And that's why I do what I do, because I've been in the pits of despair and I've been on top of the world. And it's kind of sharing the message that it's a roller coaster of a journey, and mine has been a roller coaster so far. But the only reason I'm here right now, and the only reason is that I'm in doing school talks and I'm all over TikTok, is I'm the one screaming loud enough about it.
Yeah.
Because you could sit opposite me and have a way harder story than me. Or I say to my school talks and my corporate talks, the only reason I'm at the top of the room is because I took the TikTok to talk about it. You could have a much harder upbringing than me. And the point that I make on that is all of our feelings are justified, because you could have social anxiety or depression or anything in between. And you should never let anyone say, well, you shouldn't feel that way, because we all go through our own personal battles.
Yeah, and we deal with them differently.
Yeah, so that was kind of a long-winded story of why I started HUH, but there's been a lot of kind of mental health trials and tribulations along the way. There's certain parts of my story that I haven't told anyone yet, and I won't, because there's certain areas of my life that...
I want to keep it private to yourself, yeah.
Very true, and like there's certain parts where I may have not made peace with yet, or other people mightn't have made peace with yet, and it's just like it's a bit too personal on both of our behalves to kind of discuss, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And maybe one day, because it's definitely very, very relatable, and there's people out there who do talk about it, and I hear it and go, wow, that's so similar to my part of the story that no one knows.
Yeah.
And when I sit here and talk about like the anxiety and maybe all the weight and all the self-confidence issues, someone will listen and go, that's me right now, or that was me 3 months ago. Or they might listen to it and then in a year's time they're like, remember listening to that? That's me now, you know? So it's all about relatability when it comes to mental health. And that's why that's the background to why I started it, and that's the kind of reason I do it, because we all have a story to tell. I'm actually so interested in like the stories of people, regardless of mental health, just in general. Like I love just chatting to people, like
people watching. You're one of them.
like you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm just a creep. But like how, for example, so we're here right now, and how all of our actions in our life have led to this very moment. And we have nothing. This sounds a bit airy fairy, and I'm not like that. I promise to all the viewers and listeners. Like this sounds like really airy fairy, but like,
but it is. It's true.
It's true. Everything we've done to this very second is happened for a reason, and like we're here for a reason today, and our paths have crossed on this podcast, and who knows why? But you know what I mean, because we've seen each other online, all that sort of stuff. But we have nothing else than right now. So. I often say, well, I don't say this, but I say it in my talks, I didn't come up with this, but anxiety is living in the future. Depression is living in the past. But if we solely focus on right now, talking into this mic about our stories, there's not one problem in the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you scale it back, there's a lot going on right now outside the walls of this office. But if we totally consume ourselves in this, I'm not worried about the next bill. I'm not worried about training tonight. I'm not worried about what meeting I have next. I'm just talking on the podcast.
Living in the moment.
That's it. And it's easier said than done. And I fall victim to not doing that as well. So I'm not like this perfect person who has it all figured out by no means. But that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Would you still jog every day? Do you still keep it up? Yeah.
Yeah. So like so here's the thing, right? All this like positive, or not positive, well, a good beneficial stuff from a mental health, let's say, like the exercise and all the kind of self-care I do, nearly turned into a negative. And I'll explain why.
Nearly turned into a negative.
Well, it actually did turn into a negative, because after that year, and this again is the reoccurring theme of like the goalpost shifting. After that year, I became so obsessed with running and eating habits that if I didn't do it,
you felt so bad about yourself. Yeah.
So now, like I would go to the gym 3 days a week, and then I'd either run or cycle 3 days a week. And if I don't do like 4 or 5 days a week of exercise, I feel like my week isn't as productive.
Yeah, I'd be like that.
Plays with me then.
Yeah, that's what I was only saying to Dan and James. Like I was onto such a good routine before getting up at 5 or whatever. And if I didn't one of the mornings, I'd put myself down so much over. Yeah. It's like, I didn't have this productive day, or if I didn't go to the gym. Yeah.
100%. I'm the exact same. Or I'd be like, so this morning actually I didn't go to the gym. I usually go to the gym in the mornings. And sometimes I'd be like, I won't talk now as well, or I won't be as productive today because I didn't get the workout done in the morning. Whereas I'll just go for...
Or you won't be as happy and like...
Yeah, you didn't get the endorphins early in the day, but I'll do it tonight, you know?
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Like I feel like sometimes you need to turn around and say that to yourself, like it's all right, like...
Absolutely, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
So then that positive, like a healthy habit turned into negative, and I battle with that on a weekly basis and a daily basis. And like if you look at my eating habits, I like thoroughly enjoy lots of unhealthy food. Like it has to be there. Balance is key. But I would eat the same breakfast most days, and I'd eat the same lunch most days.
Yeah.
So for the last 3 weeks, I've nearly had the same breakfast and lunch every day, and it's
overnight oats. I feel like everyone lives off them.
I went through a phase of them, but it's cause one, it's obviously easy to do, and I like being prepared. I'm always all about being like prepared for the day. Like so in my car right now, I have my like snack, lunch, workout clothes like laid out in the back seat, and I have my laptop in my bag and stuff for my work after this. But I know, okay, so it's podcast, work, and then I have my running gear, and everything is like structured, like my week.
Yeah.
But that's just not realistic too in life.
Yeah, I do get like that. If something goes a bit off, like someone rings and you need to do something in between, then you don't get this in, and then you're like, oh my God, my day's all over the shop.
Yeah, and it's hard to manage, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I used to plan my week out by the hour and all before.
That's
thinking that I'll get more done. Like, I'll probably get there around that time. And then if I go off track or I'm behind a bit, then it just stressed me out. So I stopped doing that.
Yeah, it grates on you. And that's not a good thing too. So it's trying to find a happy balance of being like prepared, and obviously being prepared is great and having a plan is great, but sometimes you get onto the M50 and there's 45-minute delay.
Yeah, or there's a crash or whatever.
Yeah. And you know what, like I've also learned that, as I said earlier, we're here for a reason. Everything is happening for a reason. And I've came across a theory on TikTok recently, and you might have seen it, called the burnt toast theory.
No.
And I love it. I'm getting it tattooed on me soon. I don't know how, but I got to do it. So essentially, the burnt toast theory is, if you burn your toast in the morning, okay, the time you take to make a new slice of toast could be those 2 minutes that changes your whole day or your whole life. So essentially, don't get angry over this first slice of burnt toast that wasted 2 minutes of your time, because that could have stopped you from driving out in front of a truck.
Yeah, exactly.
It could change the course of your day to bumping into an old friend or relative you haven't caught up in a while. Or you could walk into a coffee shop and the person in front of you is actually like, here, let me buy the next person a coffee. And it has that kind of domino effect, snowball effect. So it's kind of like, don't sweat the small things. And I see people on a day-to-day basis, and I used to be like this, of like getting really angry if someone cuts them off in traffic. You're like, relax, will you? Like you're gonna, or like speeding on the inside lane to go around someone, you're kind of like, you're gonna get there, what, a split second before you thought you were going to get there now. Like everyone just kind of needs to chill. And obviously the world is in a real heightened state right now with everything going on, but it all comes back to, like I said, trying to be present. But the burnt toast theory essentially is like, don't sweat the small things, because there's way worse going on. But also, life is too short. Like, I'm not going to fall out over someone if they're late a few minutes. Or like, imagine I came in here 10 minutes late. It's a bit of an inconvenience, but like, I know I should have been more
just
prepared.
Get on with it.
Who cares? We're going to still have a great chat.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
obviously there's taking the piss then if it goes too far in certain scenarios, but the smaller things on a day to day, you're kind of like, it could be way worse. Like we have it relatively easy here. And again, I'm going to keep saying it, that's easier said than done. You know, but I love that theory because it's really kind of grounds me. It's like, you don't need to worry about the silly things.
And what I'm like, don't see this tattoo now.
I don't know what way I'm going to do it, but I actually just thought I might just get the burnt toast theory in text across the back of my arm. But then again,
I was picturing like an actual burnt toast with a bit of like out.
I was thinking that too. So it just depends on where I go. If I go back to the same place, I'll definitely get that. Or I have a few friends over in America I'm going to visit in December, and one of them's a tattoo artist, so that might happen. Yeah. But it's definitely something I'd love to do. Yeah. As it just means a lot to me. I love coming across stuff like that. And
going back to you talking in skills, and how do you find that? You've done a lot of that now.
Yeah, I love it. So the school talks are great. I've done like 6 in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
In the last 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah. Maybe the last month. But it's great because I go into these school talks, right, and the corporate talks too, and you're talking to maybe like 50 to 200 people at once. So the message is getting spread to so many more people in one go. But also in the schools in particular, they're very like they're in that stage and they're very influential characters in the sense that like,
I feel like social media as well, so they'd probably be struggling more with mental health than 100%. We were in school or whatever. I
literally say that. I'm like, you have it way worse than me with all like with Snapchat, obviously Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, but like cyberbullying, and I wouldn't want to be in your era. And the whole like point of my talks is like letting them know like that it's okay to feel certain ways, it's okay to be anxious, it's okay to be this, and like stop comparing yourself to people on TikTok. So I would often say like comparison is the thief of joy. So there's a 16-year-old from, I don't know, Buncrana sitting there comparing himself to Mr. Beast on YouTube.
The amount of kids in the gym now. I didn't care about the gym at that age.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like doing like girls now, doing like obviously watching other girls on TikTok with like big bums and all. I can see them 100%. Doing their glute workouts, and you're like, what? You're like 14.
And it's all because of like TikTok and Instagram, and they're wanting to look like this or wanting to have that much money or drive that car, and it's just a bit.
In a way, it's kind of like they're kind of in a gym on the weekend instead of going out drinking. But at the same time, then it's kind of like, why? Like, I didn't really care about that much.
Yeah, it's...
Fair enough, sports and stuff, but like...
it's the way of the world. Obviously, it's a healthy habit to have too, which is great. But as long as it's been done for the right reasons. But with my school talks, anyway, like I'd be at the top of the room, and people often ask, like, do you get nervous? And I'd be like I do, nerves are good, but when I'm up there, because of like my self-confidence issues in the past, and I've kind of worked really hard on it, and I like public speaking now, is no one else in the room knows the story better than me. So for example,
it's your story.
When we're chatting, you don't know my story better than I do. So I could say anything right now. I'm obviously not lying, but let's say I added something in that I don't usually talk about, or I took something out that I do usually talk about. You'd never know. And I think when I'm standing at the front of a room of like 200 people, that's what fills me with confidence. So I'm like, well, there's no one better than me at this, because none of these people know me, you know? And even if they do know me, they don't know the ins and outs of me. And like I did a school talk in Waterford one day, and I just got back from a trip from the States actually, and I was like really jet lagged and tired. I drove to Waterford like at 6:30 the morning after I got in, and I was talking to 500 like boys 12 to 17, like literally the whole school. And I spoke for an hour and I was literally just like talking to a brick wall. There was nothing coming from them, like not even a smile or a nod. And I was there sweating. I was tired. I was like, I just drove 2.5 hours for this. This is like the worst talk I've ever done.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared because I was on the holiday, but obviously it was my own story, so I knew it. And I was like, that went down like a lead balloon. And the teacher came up to me and said, that was amazing. Like, I've never seen them interact so much. I was like,
They didn't even speak.
what were you watching? Like, sorry, just shouting annoyed. What are you watching? But she was like, oh, well, it's a classic case of like young boys in a scenario of like, they don't want to make it look like they're enjoying it. They want to be cool. And I was in that position. Like, I was that young boy.
Yeah, they're hardly going to be like, oh, how do you deal with this? Because this is what I do when I'm at home. They're not going to bring that up.
No, because then everyone's going to be like, what? Or they might get slagged. And then that's the sad thing. Like, I'd get home and I had 20 messages on Instagram.
Did you?
Yeah, and it was from that school. And they're like, really love that talk. And I'd never ever say, listen, you should have asked in the talk, because that's not fair. But it's just interesting to see the mentality is still there, and that's exactly why I do what I do, to try break down the stigma.
They probably felt more comfortable reaching out, not in public or around their friends or whatever.
That's it. And like, when the only issue is there, right, when they're not reaching out, they're doing someone else a disservice, because they could be sitting beside John or Sean or whoever who has the exact same question or similar issues.
Yeah.
Because like, mental health is so relatable. So if I sat here and talk about anxiety or self-confidence, there's a million other people out there with the same problem.
Yeah, I feel like if, say, me and the girls are out having a chat, like, we'd do like how we feeling and all, like, well, you always get that. But when it comes to, I'd love to say, like, just from like outside view of what fellas talk about when they're together.
Yeah,
they really don't talk about any of that.
Well, do you know what's funny, right? Because I've seen it over the years now. 85% of my customers are female, right? And I noticed a reoccurring trend that, like, there were so many men in my stuff. I'm like, but they're not buying it. So what was happening is their sisters, their moms, their partners, their cousins were buying it for them and then giving it to them as presents. Because I think they are like, oh, I don't want to buy that. It makes me look like this.
And the guys suffer with mental health. I don't want to seem like a wimp or whatever.
Yeah.
All this, yeah.
And I've been in dressing rooms with lads, and no one wants to address the elephant in the room of like people not showing up, people not performing well, people like being in awful form. And you're kind of like, we all see this, but no one wants to talk about it. And again, that's why I got into what I do. But only since I started this brand, I've had a few friends come to me out of the woodwork that I've known since I'm 4. Yeah. It's like, Mark, I'm struggling with this, I'm dealing with this. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like,
you would have never expected it.
No, and that's a terrifying thing. Like, I could be going through the world's worst right now, and here I am just chatting away. And I'm not, thank God, touch wood, I'm not. And I don't. But there is people who are just going about their day to day with this massive like smoke screen up of like, everything's fine. But it's not. Everything's on fire on the inside. And since I started H2H, I've seen that. But the best thing that's ever happened is like, I have some really, really good close circle of friends. So like, for example, I have a few like Darren and Eddie, and they were great to help the brand over the years. But they're lads now, when we meet up, we'd be like, but how are you? And we actually have proper chats of like, how was your day? And
yeah,
like,
that's good, yeah.
We get into it, and I'd even be voice noting the lads, and like, there's a lot gone on the last year for us all. And I'd be like, so how are you feeling after this? And we'd actually properly chat about it, whereas 3 or 4 years ago, it'd be real awkward to do that. And now it's not. And I want that to try be with every friend group, every family, every team, every workplace, you know?
Yeah.
So
fellas just need to turn into like having little girly chats. That's what it is, you know?
And we really want it. Deep down, we want it.
Just acting the hard man. Yeah, and with your social media presence, actually, you've grown like such a big following on TikTok and Instagram and stuff. Did you find that hard? Like,
yeah, I do and I don't. So in the beginning, like, I loved it. So lately, I find it really hard because one, all the platforms keep changing, so it's so hard to get acknowledged and noticed anymore. Like, I'd be posting out to thousands and thousands, and you might get 80 likes, and I don't ever measure anything off likes, but like, you can see the engagement is so far down. You're like,
the views and stuff.
The views, and you're like, how? And then it has a direct effect on sales, because if people aren't seeing your stuff, you're not top of mind because they're seeing a million things on Instagram a day.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, right, it wasn't easy, but like, I took the approach that I'm just going to document everything I do. So for example, if I start my day and I'm going for a run and then going to work and then I'm packing orders, I just decide to document it in like a kind of like a vlog style thing.
Yeah, and then you can just cut little clips from everything and
absolutely. Yeah. And it means like, I'm doing this anyway, right? For example, we're here. Let's say I took a video right now. I'm here anyway. what harm in me taking a 10-second video? I'm not going out of my way to do it. So now I've just documented I've been doing a podcast with you today. So if I made a day in the life later, I didn't have to go out of my way to come here to take a video of something I wasn't actually doing.
Yeah.
So like, for example, when I was packing orders, I'd make loads of videos of packing orders. I'd go live packing orders. I
keep saying I need to go live, but it's the thought of it. I'm like, how do I start it?
Yeah, you just go over it. Like
what? Like when you turn that live on, like what do you? Hi, guys. Like,
yeah, see,
that's the thought of it. I know, like 2 minutes in, it's the same thing as going on your story and talking.
Yeah,
but it's like the talk kind of process I have behind it. I won't do it.
Fair.
Like I don't know why. See, I'm only kind of. I have TikTok, but I just delete it or whatever, not use it, and then go back. So I haven't really watched that many lives. But anytime I see one, they're already halfway in. So I'm like, how did they start that?
Listen, you have to kind of just make your own one. Make your own kind of style. Like with my one in particular, I was just packing orders. I could be busy on the screen and then come back to it. Like, oh, what's the crack? Like, I'm packing orders here. I'll be over and back to the phone and we'd chat away. And the reason I did it was so you'd see your order being packed, right? And then you're like, I want my order to be packed. And you go to the website and you'd buy. And it'd have a domino effect of all these people coming onto the live and going, oh, I want my order to be packed on live.
And when you're live, so many other people see it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It gets out to,
It
even
really
on
is.
Instagram, you're the first one on the stories, even if someone is seeing your stories.
Yeah.
Yes, it is such a good thing to do. Like,
no, definitely. And like, I think with the social media stuff as well is all these different angles and approaches and methods of like something different are the way to go. So for example,
all them broadcast channels.
Yeah, I haven't touched them now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm just too busy lately. But like, if you look at my kind of social media progression over the years, like it's not like a Spielberg production. You know what I mean? It's all user generated content. It's rough. It's ready. It's off the hip. Like, you know what I mean? Or off the cuff. And it's just ready to rock. So if you look at it, it went from my apartment in America. I used to live in the States. Then moved home to Ireland to the box room of my parents' house.
How long did you live in America for?
18 months.
Oh, did
yeah,
you?
I left that out of my story actually. But it's actually a really interesting part of it though. So throughout school, which I kind of touched on, I was kind of like the class clown, not really interested in it. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did the Leaving Cert, didn't do particularly well. And I did well in the subjects of the teachers I liked. And the other teachers I didn't like, I was like, well, I'm not putting any effort into this class. It wasn't a good way to be. Yeah. But I went to DIT in town and I didn't want to go. I kind of did it to keep my parents happy, but it's the best thing I ever did. And I met my best friends. I met some of my best customers who are still my best customers. And then I did a thesis in how the backgrounds and cultures of entrepreneurs affect their success and failure rates. So I was really into sales and marketing. And then off the back of that, I got a grad program. So because I graduated, I applied through IBEC and I got a job in America with Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, the best one around. There's a little ad for them.
Little shout out.
But I went over to the States then, selling whiskey for 18 months, best time of my life. And this is all...
It's so different. I'm literally going on Thursday now to New
unreal.
York. Can't wait.
Way.
First time.
Oh, no way. Unbelievable.
I feel like it's another world. It's like, I feel like I'm going over to a film.
That's class.
Like watching a film.
Yeah, class. How long are you on for?
I'm only going till the 31st, whatever that day is. It's on Sunday?
Tuesday.
I'm
Deadly.
like
New
shocked.
York is amazing. You're going to have a time of your life.
Yeah.
Class. And it'll be it might be decorated too. Definitely Halloween, but it might be Christmas stuff up as well. But I was in the Midwest of America, in Wisconsin. And it was like two Irish people I lived in Milwaukee, two Irish people in the city. Like, it was really, really different. Best thing I ever done. But while I was there, still quite passionate about mental health and business. I didn't address any of my problems. So it was essentially a form of escape. I wanted to leave the root of my problems to go abroad, and I ran away from my problems. And I had the time of my life. But that's when I came back. I started up H02H. And that's kind of getting back to the content side of things. I moved home, which is another ordeal in itself, which definitely had a negative impact on my mental health because I was
living back in the house.
I was like 24 in the States. I had a company car. They paid for my accommodation, my healthcare. They essentially paid my way for everything. They were flying me all over America for work. I was like this young, single Irish man with an Irish accent and a company credit card selling Irish whiskey. I was like, this is the make believe. My friends came over like, Mark, this is a fairy tale you're living. You're like living a movie. I was like, I know. And then when my trajectory was like this, and then it all came crashing down during COVID. And I was kind of like 2 kilometer rule back here, no GAA, back into my parents' house. I was like, what has just happened? You know, the type of way.
Yeah.
And then that had a big impact on H2H, and then it kind of started from there. And then with the content, then I just kind of documented my day to day from the box room all the way through packing all the orders, kind of picking up speed, talking about kind of different tactics on social media. I started doing random acts of kindness, and there essentially what I did was to get my name out there and to try take, like, let's say TikTok by storm, for lack of a better phrase. I used to pack up boxes of our products and drop them around Dublin in random places where I knew people would pass on the way to work, and they would have been essential workers at the time. So anyone leaving the house who had to leave the house, and they'd come across this box on the street at 6 a.m, 7 a.m, saying, if you found this, open it, it's for you. And they'd open it, and inside it's H2H hoodies, t-shirts, hats, with a note that said, this is just a daily reminder, take care of your mental health, slow down today, this is a random act of kindness from H2H Clothing. If this doesn't fit you, or it's not your colour or your style, re-gift it, pass the message on. And that really took TikTok by storm and got me like a lot of growth. Like a lot of growth.
I'd say you got a good few people putting up just random TikTok videos.
Yeah, and well, you know what, off the back of it, just with the views, like I know one of them was like 300,000 views, but I got so much radio appearances. And then the radio appearances sparked like corporate orders and even more orders all over the country and all over the world. And it kind of had this snowball effect. So then that was kind of like how I kind of grew, but it was the day to day, and then the kind of really like different types of marketing with the random acts of kindness. And off the back of that, then with the radio, then fast forward a year or two, Mini Cooper and BMW noticed me, and they reached out to me and was like, oh, we want to give you a car. And I was like, what do you mean you want to give me a car? They're like, oh, you're doing great work, we want you to drive one of our cars. And it's like, are you just having me on? Like, is this a wind up? Like,
you were thinking it was like an April Fool's
joke. Honestly.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I'm driving a branded Mini, and they're like, this is because of the amazing work you're doing. And I go back to thinking, like, when I first started TikTok, making cringy TikToks, and no one thought this was cool. And now everyone thinks it's cool, you know? And if there's anyone listening out there who's doing something on the side and you think your friends or your family are saying this or that, it's like, do it, because nobody thinks it's cool in the beginning. But when you're getting cars, I'm not saying you will, but if you're getting cars and all these stuff and orders and you're being on the radio, then everyone wants to know who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. They look at you at the start and be like, oh, look at this little wannabe influencer.
Absolutely.
So you get set.
100%. And like, I think it's sad with people like with that attitude. Like, I think we're a nation of begrudgers, unfortunately. But like with this podcast or with my business or someone setting up something on the side, power to you. Like, this could become the next biggest thing, and the only person stopping it is ourselves. So
who cares what anyone thinks?
100%.
I think I'm going, sometimes I will still care, and then other times I'm just kind of like, yeah, like they're not.
It kind of comes and goes, doesn't it? Depending
I feel
on
like
how
I'm
you feel.
getting better at it now. Where ages ago I'd be very like, oh, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. That's a bit cringe, or I don't want to do this. And I'd be lying if I say I don't care, but I still do, but I try not to.
Yeah, exactly.
If that makes sense. So that's kind of the social media side of things. And then I use, like, my customers are my greatest asset. Like, it's like a cult. So once they have my hoodie, it honestly is. But they're wearing my hoodies on a day to day, and then they're tagging me on a day to day. But then they're wearing it to all their friends and families all over the world
and
who I
they're
would never reach. And they're like, what does that mean? H2H? What's that? Like, oh, it means how's your head? It's an Irish mental health awareness clothing brand. So one, it's doing exactly what I want to do. That minimalist H2H is.
That's what I was going to say. It's real clean and like aesthetic look in the clothes. It's not like there's not much going on the hoodies. No, and that's what everyone wants.
That's exactly why I did it.
Yeah.
Because when you see it, you'll be like, what is that? And the next thing you know, you're chatting to your cousin or your family or friend about mental health, and you haven't even tried. So they'd either be like, huh? Slagging you? Or they'd be like, what is that? And then you're chatting for 10 minutes. Oh, it's an Irish guy set up this business from Ashburn, County Meath, and they donate to charity. And like, that won't work miracles, right? But it might resonate with that person that day, that week, that month, that year. There's an Irish lad setting up a mental health brand. I actually don't feel great myself. Like, I should probably do something about that. Or I'll go buy a hoodie, and the end goal isn't for loads of people to buy off me. The end goal is to, like, deal with your problems and, like, address your mental health and kind of be comfortable enough to talk about it to someone you love. And that's the hardest part, because I didn't go talk about it till I was 24 or 5.
Yeah. And so how did you go about, all right, I want to start a clothing brand? How did you?
So, like, there were so many different ways, because COVID hit and I was moving home, and I was very passionate about mental health, and I'd struggled with my mental health, but also I was very businessy. So I was like, how could I kill two birds with the one stone here? So I was like, well, if I write a book, I'm shy of writing, no one will read this. If I do a podcast, right? I was like, I don't have a clue how to do a podcast, and if I had a setup like this now, I definitely will do a podcast. Like, you know, and if I could like have the support system around me to like set one up and edit it and put it out there. But I was like, I know I can sell. So if I can sell something like tangible, like a hoodie or a t-shirt, the quality of it can only get better, and with experience I can only progress. So if it goes like under, who cares? At least I'll fail fast and I'll learn from it. So I just wanted to be able to give something to someone for their hard-earned money and have it benefit them. So that's where it kind of came from. The H2H clothing was like, there was no like initial like secret recipe or pill I took to be like, what name will we use? It just came to me randomly one day off the back of like just chatting to some friends, and I just was like, if I put this on a hoodie, I think people are nosy enough to ask, and if people are nosy enough to ask, we can get them started about mental health, and if we get them started about mental health, we can tackle the stigma. But it just means I don't actually do it. I just give them the tool to do it, and then I take a step back. Like, I don't need to know about their personal issues, and I won't know, and I'll never know. But what I do know is people will reach out and say, I wore this hoodie to the gym, or I wore this hoodie at a family gathering. We spoke for 2 hours with a relative who I never knew was struggling. And like, a problem shared
brings
is a problem
the conversation up.
100%.
Yeah.
Without trying. And that's the thing, because if we sat down around a table like this with all of our closest friends and be like, John, what's the problem? They put the barrier up. They're like, they're not going to talk about it. It's just, it's a bit, it's too formal and it's just inappropriate. Whereas if you give them the tool to kind of like, what is that? And the next thing you know, so I say casual clothing, starting comfortable conversations.
And if you're wearing a hoodie that supports mental health, then you'd probably feel more open to talk about it as well.
100%.
Where like you wouldn't just open up to just anyone.
Without a doubt, you've hit the nail on the head there. So when I'm wearing the hoodie, or customers have told me, I won't refer to myself, so my customers said when they're wearing the hoodie, people in their life see them as an advocate for mental health. So they're more comfortable, they feel more comfortable to go talk to them because they're in the H2H brand.
Yeah.
So it's like a marker. It's like, oh, look, they're wearing the H2H.
You can speak to me. Like,
yeah, I'm one of them. I'm one of the advocates. So it's
I'm
good.
the
That's what I'm calling it, a
cult.
cult. Yeah, that's exactly why I call it a cult. And I've come across it, and I've like 500 Trustpilot reviews now. Thankfully, they're all, I think there's one that's lower than 4-star, but they're all like saying, this started the conversation. The quality of this is great. And it's kind of like ticking a few boxes. And long may it continue, I suppose.
So what is your vision for your business and your goals going forward?
It's tough because like it changes a lot. Like the last year have been really tough for me personally, mentally, business wise, right? So we've had H2H is 3 years in, and like this year alone, I didn't know if H2H would make it this far. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then we pivoted. So for example, we'd COVID, everyone spending all around them, right? Really, really good start. We were going viral on TikTok in year 2. So year 1 was COVID. Everyone had the PUP as well. So they had a lot of extra money to spend. They couldn't go on holidays. They couldn't go out for dinner. So they have all this money.
Just shopping online.
Burning a hole in their pocket, yeah. So H2H like flew. Year 2, really, really strong as well. But there was a slight decline because we were back to normality. And then year 3, the start of year 3 was like, what's happening? And we spoke about it earlier, about like social media changes so much. It's so hard to stay relevant unless you're pumping loads of money in. And as a small business, you don't have the money to pump in. So it was so slow. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, we have all these overheads still. We were going like this. Obviously, there was a slight kind of plateau in year 2. But then this year, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to shift this all and pivot to corporate work. So what we do now is mainly just corporate work. So like,
you're seeing you kind of brand their logo on your hoodies.
Yeah. So we do co-branding, and that was just the best thing we've ever done. And I remember I spoke to the founder of Gym Plus Coffee years ago, and he's like, you'll have to pivot. Year 3 is where like you'll come to the crossroads of like tough decisions to make, and you'll need to make a decision to keep the business going if you're struggling. And I had to make one of those decisions of, right.
Why is this like a thing for all businesses?
Like year 3 is with the point where like you come to a point of where like you've all these overheads and you're getting all this traction, but the cash flow doesn't match your expenses and what your plans are and your marketing budgets, because it just happens. And it's kind of like a natural thing where you'll see businesses start, and after a year or so they'll dwindle. And it's just because it's tough. Like if you'd seen us at the start of the year, like I was like, what are we going to do? And then I shifted all corporate stuff. We ran the business way more leaner, and we've kind of turned it around, and we're on the rise again. So like the last 3 or 4 weeks, let's say, there's probably like 20 to 50 custom order requests in for like large orders. Whereas if I was trying to get 1,000 individuals to buy 1,000 hoodies, that's so expensive to try market to them.
Yeah, to pop up on everyone's phone and
Oh,
everything
100%.
else. Yeah.
And for them, like being honest, like the hoodies are real premium and sustainable, so they're 60 to 70 quid. So
Right, yeah.
when I break it down, it's kind of like how hard do you have to work, and how much brand awareness do you need for an individual, let's say in Cavan or Leitrim or Cork, to be like, right, I'm going to spend €70 on a hoodie, even though they
Right,
don't
yeah.
know me yet.
Yeah.
So it's all about relationship building. So I essentially just kind of shifted to the corporate stuff. They have budgets to spend, but also I can reach the masses in one. So if someone like, I don't know, Siemens got their most recent order off me, and they got like 50 hats. That's 50 individuals getting my stuff in one go, and their business is paid for it.
Yeah.
So there's loads of boxes being ticked there, and that's
And then
what I
they're
shifted
going home
towards.
to their families and
100%.
it's getting out in that way.
Yeah, so that's why I shifted to this year. And then I kind of started a marketing thing on the side, and then that took off. And it kind of just comes and goes. And again, I look down at the tattoo, and it's like trying to be resilient and be like, right, you survived the worst days, one more day, one more month, one more week. And that's where I am now. And thankfully it's turning around. And it's not like, you'll see on my Instagram, it's slow. Not that like the business didn't slow down, let's say, because we shifted and we pivoted. But then I became way too busy to post online.
Yeah.
And then we were going through.
Is
like,
it just you that? Sorry, is it just you doing the whole business? Like,
Yeah,
have you got
yeah.
staff?
No, so my friends would help me a lot, like, and my family, but mainly just me.
No way, that's not.
Yeah.
No
It's
wonder.
tough.
Yeah, you're doing. What hours did you say you done today?
Yeah, yesterday was like 6 to 11, so 6 in the morning to
that's
11
so
last night. But then, yeah, but it's good. Like, I
How
enjoy
do
it.
you? Is that like including the gym and everything else?
That was including the gym. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So you just went back to work then after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no 9 to 5 when you work for yourself.
No, but then on the flip side of that is like you can kind of just come and go when you want. On days
Yeah.
where I'm just like, it's not that busy, I'm like, I'll sleep in today, or I'll finish up early today and I'll go for a walk, or I'll do nothing.
Yeah.
I don't often do
Pick
that.
and
but
choose when.
yeah, exactly. Or you can come and do stuff like deadly stuff like this in the middle of a Tuesday, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the really good side of it. And you kind of pick and choose what you want to do and where you want to go. Whereas if you're in a 9 to 5, like, you have this meeting at 11, Mark, you have to be here. You know, that type of way.
Yeah.
So I love the flexibility and freedom of it, but that comes with like the risks of it. Like, you know, there's some months over the 3 years I couldn't pay myself, or there's several months over the 3 years that I couldn't pay myself or couldn't pay the bills. And you're like, what am I going to do? And then the next day you get a massive corporate order and you're like, okay.
Yeah, it is
we're
the
okay.
stress of like where if you work somewhere, it's like a steady income that you're always getting every week. You know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Where like when you work for yourself, it's like things can just go dead, and then you're like, how there's always that kind of worry in the back that say something might not go as well or whatever, or you won't get the orders or.
Yeah, and you can't blame anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, do you know, if you're in like a company and you're like, oh well, Mary or John didn't do this, I couldn't do this then.
Yeah.
It's like, the business not coming in, Mark. Figure it out. Like, you know what I mean? There's no like running to your mom or dad or your boss.
It does go down to all social media. Like that's what I went.
Does.
That's what I was saying to you. I went quiet for like 2 months, and everything just started going like.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get my shit together, or like, what am I going to do? I literally only got my second premises and I went quiet, just stopped posting because it was just wrecking me head, the Instagram and the TikTok and all. All having it all aesthetic and all this because I'm in beauty, so I have to be doing that now as well.
Yeah.
So it was just annoying me, and I stopped posting, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually really affecting my business.
It's tough though, because like there's days
this is the world we live in now.
Honestly, and there's days where you just don't feel like posting, and you kind of nearly have to show up like and do it because no one else is going to do it. But like there's weeks I went without posting and you just don't get any sales then.
Yeah.
And you're like, right, need to figure this out. Like, it's tough. It is really tough. And I think for people listening, like, it takes a certain person to do what we do and to do what I see the best in the world, like the top like entrepreneurs out there. I'm like, that's a different level of like freakiness to get to that. Like, that's commitment and just stubbornness and like just hard work. And I'm like, I'd love to be like that. But again,
they really don't have a life.
That's the thing. And like with the mental health side of things, I have this conflicting thing in my head on a day-to-day basis, right? Where like yesterday, I was up at 6, got home, I went to bed at like 11:30, right? But I'm working like 2 jobs, let's say, or I'm promoting mental health and I'm grinding out. But then I'm like, but that's not good for your mental health. So I have this like balancing act of like, But if you want to try to be the best or up to compete with the best and have a good successful business, you have to put the hours in. But then if you put the hours in, the rest of your life suffers.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find a happy balance.
It is, isn't it?
It's confusing, and it really annoys me at times because I'm like, but that's just an excuse, Mark. You need to put in the hard, hours and the long nights, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
But then if it's affecting your well-being, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mind fuck. Like, I just don't know. But listen, that comes and goes. So I'll see. Like, I think the most important thing is self-care and like mental health and well-being, obviously the message I share, but I think I can do that hand in hand with it. And also, if I wasn't doing what I do, I think it would affect my mental health and well-being too, because I love what I do.
Yeah, that's all I do. Like, if I didn't work as much, I'd feel like shy.
Yeah. So it's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, you'd be putting yourself down there, not putting in the work.
Yeah.
And then when you do, then you're like, oh, I haven't seen my friends in a while, or I haven't done this in a while. Need to probably take a step back, and then you feel like shit when you do.
Yeah.
It's like a circle.
It's vicious. It's a hamster wheel. You can't get off it. But no, I totally agree. And even on that, like I would have very good boundaries now as I get older and put real good stuff in place to be like, right, you need to stop now. But I'd have like a mental health checklist, right? And if I'm feeling kind of down, I just like go through the checklist with myself. So it would be like, have you gotten enough sleep? Have you drank enough water? Have you recharged your social battery? Like, when was the last time you had a bit of crack with your friends? Are you hungover? And how have you fueled your body the last few days? So I'll kind of go through all those 5 and I'll be like, right, I haven't met the lads in a few days. We need to do that because it's always good crack, even if it's just for a cup of coffee or tea or a night out. Did I get 6 to 8 hours sleep last night, or am I being a fool and only getting 2 hours sleep? Like, how much exercise have I got in, and to make myself just feel good about myself, and how have I fueled my body? Like, am I eating well for the energy to like sustain myself? And then obviously being hungover obviously has a detrimental, the anxiety there. But once I kind of go through all them, and if I'm still feeling a certain way, I'll be like, right, now it's time to go back to like therapy, or let's go talk to someone now, or let's go chat with the lads properly to get stuff off your chest, or just kind of chat through things. Because if I don't, it just builds up, and the next thing you know, you burn out. So that's how I kind of keep myself on track and kind of remind myself that it's not all about just work. Like, you have to like do nothing every now and then and just sit still and not be distracting yourself with music or exercise or work or the TV or your phone. Just do nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
thanks so much for coming on, Mark.
no problem at all. Hopefully that was informative and entertaining.
Yeah, it was good. So if anyone is looking to reach out to you, Serby, where can they find you?
So all over social media, HUH Clothing on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Our website is huhclothing.com. And yeah, I don't think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this episode, whatever platform you're listening to, make sure to give us a follow or subscribe.